when I was quite young and sort of the teenage years, all the hard questions I wasn't getting answers to. The thought popped into my head is, I can't be the first one to ask these questions, obviously. And there must be a lot of other people who are older than me or more experienced who have figured this out. So where are they? So it's stuck in my mind that similar to the Finder's Course, it's like I got a choice. Maybe I should look for some of these people and get the answers instead of trying to figure them out myself. So that was kind of the start to it. And over the years, I got to see more and more lectures, talks. There were always free lectures on cosmology, spirituality, you name it. So I started getting more and more curious about these things and went into life as an explorer, which is not far off of a seeker. And I think it's changed over the years. I retired about 6 or 7 years ago, and there was a vacuum there. So that desire to find whatever you want to call it, I still don't have a good word for it. But there is kind of this goal that some combination of, happiness, engagement with the world, connectedness with people, all of that. So I've been looking for something to do with meditation. I really backed into this Finder's Course backwards, because I had no idea what it was. All I was looking for was some way of getting back into doing some new meditation. Just sort of, okay, appropriate timing, jump in, and then it met a lot of other things that I wasn't expecting. I was seeing that as a first step. Learn some meditation. Like I'd always known, every form of spirituality that I've ever been involved in, any teachings, had some component of meditation to it. And yet it seemed so broad. I couldn't even figure out how some of the meditations could be related. And I did some reading, and now you get crazy notions in your head, and then you read another book and they say all those notions are wrong. So you keep bouncing around. And this sounded, hey, for once somebody's going to take a whole bunch of meditation techniques and line them up and let us kind of look at them. So that was kind of unique. So it also met the kind of that component of what I was looking for. I took a long time to retire. The change is really quite significant. What I found is that you don't have to do stuff anymore. Like most of the stuff we used to have to do is to make sure we had, a place to live and food and table and maybe have a good time. But when you take the big chunk of work out of there, there's this big hole of time that you're faced with. And so that's when I started going back to saying, okay, what was I doing, in the last 10 years? I was getting ready for retirement. So I had started on doing some spiritual work. And then so when the hole opened up, I started filling it with different things. And some of them were good and others weren't so good. My emotions were getting more intense, especially the negative ones, when something bad would happen. I wasn't at loose ends. Like I have so many hobbies, I could keep myself busy, but that's not the point, right? So I had got to the point where I didn't want any more teachers. Okay, like I've gone to so many courses. I spent so much time. I spent 7 or 8 years invested in the Diamond Approach with a huge amount of time and energy, and I just didn't want anybody to tell me what to do anymore. It was just kind of like, this isn't working. People telling me what to do just doesn't seem to work. So I kind of looked around to just sort of keep an eye open. Like I wasn't seriously going at it. So I'm just kind of sitting there. I'm pretty happy. No real health issues. I'm not overly wealthy, but we live a really comfortable life. My wife and I have a good relationship, and I get to see kids and friends, and I've got a pretty good social network. So besides all of that, there's just kind of this underlying, just a ripple, of dissatisfaction with something. It's not quite there. So that's kind of where I was at. So comfortable, not unhappy, not super happy, but just kind of cruising along, trying to get things. I knew I needed to do something. I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life like that. This new place, the shift in perspective includes both kind of what I see and kind of how I think things work. And the how I think things work is more of is not static. So I don't see myself stopping here. I'm curious too about having my eyes open. The horizon has expanded way farther out. So I need to see a lot more before I decide to settle down and be in one spot. Even people that have taught us, they're not standing still. There's some kind of dynamism about about their life, that I'm not going to end up in a rocking chair being bored. So it's really hard to describe for me, because it's a couple things I notice. Everything is more alive and brighter. Like, I see things differently. So that's kind of like just a physical part. My sense of taste really increased for some reason. I think that's a sort of a focus thing. Like, I was eating my breakfast one day and thought, wow, this tastes really good. Wait a second, this is the same breakfast I have every day. What's different? You know, so it's that focus thing. It just, like, I don't have to try to pay attention, but I'm paying attention to everything. There's also more of a sense of me being here. Again, it's a little hard to describe. Before, it was a bit like almost like a ghost, you know. So the body's there. There's sort of motions that you go through, that I went through. Now I feel, you know, I'm totally here. My feet are planted on the ground. There's this, you know, being that is in the world, connected to the world, as opposed to maybe this actor or TV actor that's going through the motions. So the internal ones are harder. They're not so obvious. When I do the appreciation, thinking back over the day, I see a lot of things that are different. I listen more carefully. I've gone back to more conscious monitoring of what's going on with me. So maybe that's part of the body connection and being in one place. And I try to engage more. If I'm going to have a conversation with somebody or interact with them, it's not going to be, you know, on this protocol of courtesy and, you know, whatever's going on. It's going to be about from my inside to their inside sort of thing. And just that kind of connection is just something, I'd say I want it, but it's like I don't have a choice anymore. Kind of drawn out of me. It's like, this is the way that I am, so this is what's going to happen when we connect and talk to people. We're not going to beat around the bush. In the real connections, they're you know, the openness, the honesty, all that stuff sort of comes through, and trying to make that stronger connection. Yeah. So there's that from the inside. I also experience a bit of that quietness where there seems to be more space in the brain cavity. So maybe that's part of that business of not having the self-referential thoughts going on. But it's kind of funny. It's like there's a bit of an echo up there. So there's more space. So I kind of have a demarcation sort of before Finder's Course and after. You know, one of my goals was to cut down on my reactivity, and that's happened. So I don't react the same way as I did before. It's not triggering as much. So that helps a lot, because I think a lot of problems come from the past response as opposed to staying in the moment. I think that the beauty of the course was removing the theory. This is just practice, because, you know, our minds want to get in there, and that worked really well for me. It's like, oh yeah, Jeffrey says, you know, don't think about it, just practice, you know, and we're, as seekers, I guess, I don't know about the other people, you're always thinking about things, right? It's like, and sometimes that's the worst thing you can do. If I were to rank things, that would be number one, that you know, we're not going to go into theory, we're going to actually do stuff, and make sure that you do it. Because I think a lot of people don't realize that until you get part way in, and then you sort of start to develop some bad habits. But that's the key to it, because it doesn't matter how much you read about it, it's not going to help you do it. Some of the things that you did in terms of making us accountable, like on the forms, you know, I thought that was brilliant. You know, if you didn't do it, why didn't you do it? So everybody's going to do it, so they avoid having to write the paragraph about why you didn't do it. The reinforcement and the feedback was really good. The course provides a lot of knowledge. I think it gives you a huge base to go from. So there's a huge amount of information that you get in touch with. So that sort of satisfies the curiosity. There's a practical side to it, in that it gives you some techniques to deal with things in your life that seem common to all of us. You know, like if you're dealing with an active mind, or you're distracted sometimes, and then I think as you dig deeper into that, I think it exposes people to a side of life, the spiritual side of life, which we don't get enough exposure to. There's so much variability out there, and it's so hard to find a place to learn something that doesn't have its own agenda or slant on things. It's more like religious studies course as opposed to taking one on, you know, Buddhism or something. So you kind of cover a lot of stuff. So that's another really useful thing. It just gives you a different perspective on a lot of things. So that's kind of where I'm at with this. And I've actually stopped reading. I used to kind of get my stack of books for the year, sort of keep a year's worth of reading material out there, and I've stopped doing that now. The last one was that I still haven't finished Zen and the Brain. That one, they're starting to merge into less spiritual and describing physiological things, and how that fits into is another mystery right now.